Welcome to Sunshine Art and Drawing. Today we're doing a galaxy watercolour painting. I just want to show you this a bit close up just to start with. We're going to be doing it in deep blue, crimson, vermilion, yellow, violet purple and Prussian blue. You'll also need a white acrylic paint. Watercolour paint won't cut it here, you will need a bright white acrylic paint. Okay, so let's get started. The very first thing that you're going to need to do is take yourself a nice piece of bright white watercolour paper and stick that baby down. Then take yourself some plain, clean water. I'm using an aqua brush here from Pentel, and give your painting a nice coat of clear water. Just as a nice underbase. Make sure it's nice and even and it's not too wet. Take yourself some of that nice deep blue or a Prussian blue or anything that's almost a dark navy, and you want to start mixing this in from the corners in towards the centre. So start at the very corners, add a good dark colour and then allow the water to blend it out to a light blue. Now it's okay if this part is messy, you're really just trying to make a base. So grab a bit more of that blue, start in the other corner and bring that baby out to all over. Go crazy. It's not really important to be neat in this section, and art isn't about being neat. It's about putting pen to paper and getting your feelings out, or so I've been told. Anyway, I do it to relax. Once you've blended out this blue and it's looking all pretty and fancy and you're swirling it all around and making it all look lovely, make sure you've got no harsh lines, but leave a good amount of white in the centre. You want to leave a good fist size chunk of white in the centre just to make sure that you've got some space to put in those bright colours. If you try and put a bright colour right over the top of the blue, it will mix and go green, and you don't want that. Grab yourself some yellow, chuck that in the centre and blend that out. Just be a bit haphazard. You kind of want it to be blending with the yellow and the orange and the red all blending together. Grab some of your nice vermilion orange, pop that towards the bottom, and look how bright that vermilion is. It's one of my favourite colours. I'm just adding a bit more water to the bristles just by squeezing the Pentel brush. These are really handy for painting and allow you to paint quickly, which is great for when you're a beginner. Let that sort of blend down. You do want the vermilion to blend with the blue, although surprisingly you would think that the vermilion blending with the blue would create maybe a purple, but it doesn't, it creates brown. So don't go too crazy with that. But if you take this crimson, which is this nice dark red at the top, and you blend that with the blue, you will get purple. So keep that in mind as you're blending out. I do find this Pentel brush works really well for like dabbing as well. You can dab the colour on, therefore avoiding too much water. And I'm just going to blend the edges so there's no white spots. Go right around the red, blend the red into the blue, don't go the other way around. And just make sure there's no white spaces, nothing left. Grab yourself some more yellow, pop that in the centre just to brighten up the centre, and mix it with the crimson and the vermilion to make like an orange. Now, the reason I stop for a second is I just want to see where those colours are travelling. Some colours travel into other colours quite easily, sometimes they don't move at all. Now I'm grabbing purple. My kit of watercolours came with a really dark purple, but I have noticed that a lot of kits don't come with purple. So if you don't have a purple, you could use black, or you could use, a lot of people don't like black, so you could use like another dark blue. Or if you do mix, as I said before, the crimson and a dark blue like Prussian blue or deep blue, you will get a purple. So you can just make a purple. Although this purple is quite fantastic. It's violet purple and it looks really good. And I know you can't really tell in this camera that it's really purple, but you will see it on this side. Just the light shining straight into it doesn't do it justice. But on this side you can see that it's a super deep purple, and I do want it to blend into this red here. So I've added a bit more water to the brush just by squeezing and letting that all blend together. Now, this is probably the point of time when most people say, don't fuss with it, let it dry. But I kind of like it when you fuss with watercolours. I think it's a bit more fun. Like, I don't like sitting there and waiting for my painting to dry. I guess I'm impatient that way. So I'll just work on some other part of the painting and just let that part sort of dry off a little. Just so it don't add too much water and it doesn't move too much. Just work that paint in all around the edges, make sure it's all blended well. And this is the point where I think I make an error. I pushed that blue too far, and that blue started to glide into the red. And as soon as it got through the red, it started eating into that yellow, and then you end up with green. You don't want green. But as I'm fussing with the sides, I don't think I'm really paying attention to that. So you can watch that paint move as soon as I get my hand out the way, and watch how far that blue will travel. Some paints travel further than others. I think I'd make it worse up here by adding more water. But here I'm showing you what's happened here is that there's too much water on the page now, and the paint's just going wherever it wants. There's two things you can do here. The first thing I try is to take your brush and just push some of that pooled water out. Push it out of the little well that it's created and sort of blend it out. It did kind of work, but there's still too much water on the page. So as I keep doing this, it's just going to add to that blue in the centre and make it worse. But you can try that. I did it up the top as well, just to kind of blend that top part out. The other thing you can do is get yourself a small piece of paper towel and a clean brush and just tap it where there's too much blue. And you can see it's absorbing up the wet ink or the wet paint, the wet pigment, and allowing me to wipe it on the paper towel and bring that yellow back through. So I'm just wiping it off on the paper towel, making sure my brush is clean, and doing a bit more and blending it in. And I'm showing it at the bottom as well. Just using a thirsty brush to pull all of this water off. And that's the second method of removing excess water off of your painting. And as you can see, because the water pooled there, it created a lighter spot. And as I'm pulling off this excess water, it's creating a lighter and a lighter spot in that centre part, which does look a little strange. So I added some more red just to cover it up. You do want to cover up a spot when you pull paint off of it, because otherwise it's going to be really light pastel, and that would look a bit strange. And then I get myself some yellow. I'm getting a good amount of yellow, I want it to be quite strong. And up the top here, I'm going to add some yellow and try and make that yellow travel into the crimson and make orange. And just dabbing seems to work really well with these aqua brushes. They are like a plastic tube, and the ends are made of very fine, I believe it feels like fibre optic type plastic tubes almost, really, really fine. So they do draw up water like a paintbrush, and you can squeeze them and push water out. And that makes them quite a thirsty brush, so they're handy for doing things like this. Now I'm just going to add some detail, so I'm adding a bit of sort of shading in that section to try and make it look a bit more cloudy, I guess. And I keep adding water and blending because I am trying to make this a bit more cloudy. So this is what happens when you fuss with the painting too much. I wanted to try and show you what happens when you add too much water or you really start fussing with it and trying to add more detail, and when that doesn't work you try and add different colours and that doesn't work, and it starts to bleed all into the centre, so you try and pull some of that paint away and try and stop that from happening. And blending, 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 it doesn't entirely work. So here's me trying to add some white, and I know this, when you add white watercolour paint to a wet painting you will end up with a light version of the colour underneath. The white blends really, really well on the paper, almost too well. As you can see up in this corner, as soon as I'm adding the white, boom, light blue. You get no white pigment nearly at all. It just immediately mixes with the wet paint on the paper and goes light blue. Which is great for if that's the effect you're going for, but I really wasn't going for light blue. It's supposed to be a galaxy sky. It's supposed to be dark. So what I did here is I grabbed some paper towel, and it doesn't matter what you use, any paper towel, I just grabbed the cheapest, and you take it and you fold it up with the smooth side down, and you press that onto your paper. So just lightly, one press, press, boom. You don't want to take up too much paint, you just want to take up that layer that you just added. So the blue, the light blue that I've added is coming up, and I'm just trying to take some of that off. So I'm going to take a bit off of there, that's even a bit too much, and grab a new section of paper, because you don't want to keep blotting with the same section or you will just mix your light blue with the paint. You just want to kind of dab a little bit, maybe roll across like that. That's it, that's all you want to do. So I've taken up that white off of the paper and you can see the blue underneath, and that's our blue layer. I'm going to take some really nice dark purple, wet it out a bit, and I'm going to add that over that section where I added the white to try and disguise and hide that mistake. You want to pull up the paper, like the paint off of the paper, but then you need to hide what you've pulled up. If you just leave it with just the paint pulled up, you're just going to end up with this strange pattern on your paper from the paper towel, and that won't help with making your painting look beautiful. So now that I've added that blue, we're going to let this dry. So let me just speed that up for you, the whole drying section, and we'll come back after I finish drying. When you're using a hairdryer to dry your paint, just use it on cool setting and try not to have it too close to the paint. Probably a foot away is pretty safe. Now I just wanted to show you these two watercolour paints. These are the ones I was trying to blend with. One of them is Faber-Castell Chinese White and the other one is just Pro Paints White. Don't use those for this section. You will need an acrylic white paint. Make sure it says acrylic on it and it's white, and you're pretty much ready to go. Squeeze some out onto a palette. I'm just using just a jar lid, you don't have to have anything special. And take some of your aqua brush and drip some water in there, or any brush, and pop a bit of water in there, just clean, plain water. And get yourself a brush you don't care about. So, like this brush is just a simple brush from the dollar store, and it's really rough, which is great for what I'm doing. And you want to point your brush towards the piece of paper and have something to protect the rest of your table from. So I'm using a little bit of paper towel just so I don't get it on my camera and everywhere, and point the brush towards the paper. It's kind of a bit hard to do to begin with and it takes a bit of practice, but you just want to point it towards the paper and flick, 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 flick. You can use your thumb, you could use a toothbrush, anything with kind of rough bristles. And I'm just adding a bit more water to this white paint because it's not moving as much as I'd like it to, but just a drip at a time. You don't want to make this paint too wet or the white will go sort of transparent and you won't be able to see it as well on your painting. And the more water you add, the tinier the little flecks will get. So you'll see that I'll have a lot more little tiny stars instead of giant big globs of paint. You do want a mixture of sizes of your stars. Now I'm showing you how to get rid of the huge glob that I chucked in the centre by accident. I'm just using a thirsty brush and a bit of paper towel. Take off as much as you can of that white paint, just using the tip of the brush, pull it off. Pull off as much as you can to start with, and then use a little bit of water, with a little clean wet brush, and blend the white in with the yellow underneath it. And what will happen is by the time it dries, you won't even be able to see that. It will dry transparent because of the amount of water you mixed in. So just keep flicking your paintbrush. Make sure you've got like a lot of paint on it, and just keep flicking it until you're happy with the amount of stars that you have. Once you've let it dry completely, then peel off your tape from around the edges. The tape is great for giving a nice crisp border. And once you've peeled all that off, I'm going to just take it in for a bit of a close-up so you can see all of these little stars. So as you can see, the watercolour is blended really nicely. It kind of looks like a nebula of stars and a nice big sort of aurora kind of in the centre. I don't know what that's called. Like a big giant burning star. And all the little tiny stars all the way around. And I want to say thank you for watching. If you like these videos, please give it a thumbs up and a subscribe, and have a sunshiny day.